Welcome back. This is the last episode in this Spring AI series, and in this episode, we are going to talk about Model Context Protocol. And first, we are going to understand what is this protocol is about and how we can use the existing MCP servers out there already. And we are going to learn how we can build our own MCP server using Spring AI. And also, we are going to build our own MCP client as well. So let's get started. If you go to modelcontextprotocol.io introduction section, here you can see an interesting definition like MCP is an open protocol that standardizes how applications provide context to large language models. Think of MCP like a USB port for AI applications. So just like the way we can use the USB-C type port for connecting any device that is compatible with this USB-C port. So that way, when we are building AI-powered applications, we may have to interact with a wide range of third-party services, be it another REST API, be it talking to a database or file system or Git repository. So we may have to interact with a wide range of other services. And this MCP protocol allows us to build a MCP server, and we can interact with this wide range of tools and technologies using natural language. Like just like the way we have seen so far, we interact with LLMs using natural language. And then by providing the capabilities like RAG or tool calling, we are extending that capability, right? So this is kind of a one step further and also kind of a standardized approach to extend LLM's capability. So let us take a look at the examples, some scenarios, so that we'll understand what exactly is MCP. So for example, let's say we are building a Java application and we need to interact with the database, and we may need to interact with the third-party REST APIs and all that. So far, before MCP, before all these AI things, how we used to interact with them? Like, let's say we need to interact with this REST API. First, we understand what kind of APIs they expose, and then based on that protocols and REST API request and response formats, we need to code in our application to interact with those APIs. Same thing goes for database. Depending on which language you are using, you may use JDBC or some other thing, and then you interact with that. So it is kind of a tight coupled with the language you are using and what is the service you are interacting with, and is it a REST API, is it a gRPC? So it is a very tightly coupled. And with MCP, what you can do, so let's say somebody built a REST API and also they build a MCP server that handles interaction with this REST API. Now, from any of your application, you can interact with MCP server. Instead of directly talking to the REST API, you can interact with the MCP server in a natural language, like just like the way we interact with LLMs, right? So similarly, you can interact with the MCP server, and this takes care of doing whatever is necessary. You may want to get some information, or you may want to create a new resource that you can achieve by interacting with the MCP server. And the benefits is this is a standardized protocol, right? So now it doesn't matter whether you are building a Java-based application or Python-based application or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Same way, whether it is a REST API behind the scenes, or is it a gRPC service, is it a database, you didn't care about that. All you need to do is in your application, you configure to talk to this MCP server, and then it takes care of interacting with the necessary components. So that way you are kind of abstracting what is there under the hood, and you will be able to interact with this MCP server in a natural language, which is that is how most of the interaction will happen in the AI powered applications, right? So this is how they are going to help. Let's first understand how we can use MCP servers that are already out there, so that we'll get some understanding of okay, this is the concept and this is how we can interact with use MCP servers. Okay, let's get started. If you go to github.com/model context protocol/servers, here you can see all the available MCP servers that are listed here. This is a huge list, and it seems there is a MCP server for everything that you can imagine. So now we have all these MCP servers, and depending on our need, we can pick which server we want to use. And we need a client to use these MCP servers. So one of the popular MCP client is Claude Desktop. So I have downloaded the Claude Desktop, and once you start it, it looks like this. And if you take a look at how to connect to local MCP servers in this documentation, here when you use Claude Desktop, and if you want to use MCP servers, there is a configuration file depending on your operating system, which operating system you are using. There is a configuration file which is in JSON format. This is where you are going to configure which MCP server you want to use. Okay, so I'm on Mac OS and I have this configuration file, and in this configuration file, this is how we can configure MCP servers that we want to use. Let's say in this example, there is only one MCP server configured, which is file system, and it specifies a couple of things. One is what is the command we need to use, and what are the arguments that you want to pass. So in this case, this is a file system where you can interact with these folders. You can ask what are the files that are there, or anything like that. Whatever the things you want to do with this file system, you can interact with by configuring this file system. But let's say we have a database. So I have installed a PostgreSQL database, and which is currently running in Docker, but it is exposed on the host as well. Now there are users table, posts table, and comments table. And let's imagine I want to interact with this database to explore, okay, is there any post that on the clean code? Is there any post on the prime phases? Something like that. And of course, we all know how to write SQL and get those things, but let's see how we can use MCP server and interact with this database without having to write SQL. Okay, so let me open. So here I have this Claude Desktop config JSON, and here you can see I have configured a few MCP servers already. This is a very popular, Context 7 is a very popular MCP server that you can use to get up-to-date documentation about the frameworks and technologies and all that. And here is the MCP server that I configured that I would like to interact with the database. So here, if you take a look at this list of servers, okay, and Postgres, currently this is archived, but I would like to show the process so that it is same whether it is archived or a different process. But here, this is how you can configure talking to database. Like if it is already running in a Docker container, you may want to spin up a Docker container, and from that container, you want to connect to the PostgreSQL. So if that is the case, you can go for this approach. Instead, if you want to use npx, for this you need to have a node installed on your system. So if you have npm installed, you can use this approach where the command is npx, and you can start this process and interact with the PostgreSQL. So in my case, I'm going with this npx approach. So here I configured, I'm going to use npx, and this is the PostgreSQL server, MCP server that I'm planning to use, and this is the URL for my database. So username is Postgres, password is Postgres, it's running on my local host, and the port is 15432, and the database is this. So once I have configured this, and as I have already shown, it has all these posts and everything. Now from my desktop, here I can see what are all the MCP servers configured. Here I have a bunch of them, but here you can see Postgres, right? So there is only one tool exposed from the Postgres. which is query. Now let's ask, are there any posts on Linux in PostgreSQL database? So here, as you can see, I'm not writing SQL, but I am asking in a natural language. And here you can see failed to call tool query. Let's see why it failed. So first, I think it created a request saying that select star from post where title I like Linux and all that. So here there are no tags column in the post table, so it failed. So then it is taking care of first looking up the structure of the post table and look at the columns and all that. Okay, once it has all that information, now it formed a better query that checks for posts on the Linux. Here it got this information and there is only one, so it fetch more information about the that particular post. So as you can see, we are interacting with the database using natural language, and the MCP server is taking care of doing all this behind the scenes, understanding all that, and finally giving the response. Okay, there is this information. So this is how we can interact with database using MCP server. Let me show another example of using MCP server. So here I have this playwright MCP server configured. Again, I am using npx command, and this is the MCP server I want to use. In addition to that, I have configured the output directory to be this my home directory downloads folder. So once I have configured this, there are many use cases for using playwright, but let's say I would like to take a screenshot of my blog. Let's say, okay, what can I do? Take a screenshot of https sivalabs.in. Okay, so now if I trigger this MCP, this Claude Desktop application, which is a client, understand that which tools available to it can perform this action. In this case, there is a playwright tool that can navigate to a specific web page. So here it is asking me for execution permission. So I'm saying allow once, and first it is going to navigate to this URL, and then it is going to invoke another tool called browser take screenshot. So again, it is asking me for the permission. Now when I approved it, it is going to perform that, and it took a screenshot and saved it in SivaLabs screenshot.png file, which is there in my downloads folder. Now here you can see this is the screenshot of my blog. Okay, so this is how you can use MCP servers. And similar to that, I have configured another MCP server like for YouTube. So here, what we can do, we can interact with YouTube, and we can ask for a particular video details, or ask what are all the videos available in a particular channels, things like that. Okay, so let us see how we can use this YouTube MCP server. Now let me start a new chat and ask what are the last 10 videos published on channel. So this is my SivaLabs YouTube channel ID. So I'm pasting it, and I'm asking to give me what are the last 10 videos published. So let us see how it is going to perform this action. So earlier I have already approved it, so it is not asking for the confirmation again. So here you can see this is invoked, this tool provided by that YouTube MCP server, and here you can see the last videos I made on Spring AI. So here you can see all the video details that I published, the last 10 videos. So the whole point is, without having these all technical details and all these things, by using this MCP server, I can interact with that with this wide range of services, and I can get the data and all that. Okay, So these are all the MCP servers that are already created. Now let us understand how we can create our own MCP server using Spring AI. Okay. Using Spring AI, we can create MCP servers in different ways. One is using stdio protocol, standard IO, or you can also use WebFlux SSE, server sent events, or WebMVC SSE approach as well. But here we are going to see how we can create an MCP server using both stdio and WebFlux SSE based approaches. Okay, so first let's start with this MCP server standard IO approach. And if you take a look at the pom.xml, here we are adding this Spring AI starter MCP server. When you generate an application from Spring initializer, you can add this model context protocol server, which is going to add the same starter as well. Okay, so once this starter is added, in this MCP server, we are exposing some information that we are storing in the database, in H2 database. So I have added this data JPA and H2. So let us take a look at the code we have. In a schema.sql file, I have created a single table and I stored information about the videos and the URLs and things like that. Okay, and we have this video entity again representing this table, and we have video repository with few custom finder methods. Nothing too complex, basic Spring data JPA code here. And the interesting part is we have this video tools component, and here we injected the video repository, and then we have exposed 3 tools. If you remember from the previous video of tool calling, here we are using the same functionality, like we are exposing some tools from our MCP server. So in this case, we have one tool to get all SivaLabs videos, and behind the scenes we are simply querying the video repository find all, and there is a search SivaLabs videos by the title, and again we are using find by title containing ignore case. So just we are doing a like search ignoring the case sensitivity, and also we have another tool to get one particular video details for the given title. So we have 3 tools exposed from our MCP server, but this is just a video tool as of now, and this is where we are registering the tool callbacks. So we have injected video tools, and then let's refactor this, and we created tool callbacks from so and so component. So if you have more such tools, you can inject them and also pass them in this tool callbacks from method. So this is how we can export a bean of type list of tool callbacks, which is going to internally automatically expose all the tools that are defined here. Okay, so this is all we want to do, but let us take a look at this configuration as well. We are giving some name, and because this is a standard IO based MCP server, this is not a typical web application type, so we are explicitly saying web application type is none. And also we are giving some name version to our MCP server, and also configuring we are going to use standard IO based protocol by setting it to true. And very important thing is to turn off this console logging. Typically, when you start a Spring Boot application, it will print the banner and also use by default console logger, right? So while using this standard IO based protocol, we should not have any logs or things like that. And basically, you should not be using system out.println and also in our code. It is going to interfere with the data exchanged or standard IO. So you should not be logging in this console. And I'm just using DDL auto generation for schema. So nothing too fancy in this one. And once we have application created, now we can go ahead and build this application. I simply call maven clean package, and it will create a jar file. Once I have the jar file, here I have the jar file. So what I have done, I have added the MCP server we just created with the name SivaLabs, and I'm using the command. So basically I'm pointing it to Java. I'm using st command, so I'm pointing it to the current Java, that is default that I set globally. So once we have typically how we run a Spring Boot application, we are doing the same thing here, Java minus jar and complete path to the jar file. Okay, so nothing too complicated here. Once we have configured this, we need to remember this important thing. Whenever you make any changes to this Claude Desktop JSON file, we need to restart Claude Code. Otherwise, it won't pick the configuration automatically. So let's restart this. And now let's ask details so that it is going to pick data from the SivaLabs MCP server. So basically here we are exposing this information, right? Get all videos from SivaLabs and things like that. So let us search for some videos from SivaLabs. What microservices videos available on SivaLabs? So here it is, it will try to ask, okay, here you can see it is using a SivaLabs MCP server, especially this set SivaLabs videos tool. So I'm allowing it once, and it's go ahead and sets the data that is there in the database itself, because this is what we are doing. We are particularly searching in the database, but this is the thing, whether you want to interact with the database here or you want to make a REST API call to some other API. So you do whatever it takes, but we are exposing these tools as MCP tools. Okay. So here you can see, yes, this is the tutorial based by microservices I have. It shows this information. So as you can see, we created a simple MCP server and we configured that like this, and we can verify that using Claude Desktop as well. In addition to that, we can also use introspector. Let's go ahead. And here in the README, I mentioned model context protocol inspector. There is a tool that we can use for configuring this and then testing these API endpoints. MCP tools. So let's start this. Okay, so here you can see this MCP inspector tool automatically opened in the browser. And let us go back, and here I have mentioned how we can test this. So transport type is standard IO and command is Java. So let's choose standard IO Java, and this is where we need to specify the complete path to our jar file. So here I have already configured that. Now let me click on connect, and here you can see it is connected. If you go to this tools, here click on list tools, you can see these three tools are available from the SivaLabs MCP server. Now let's go ahead and get our videos, run this tool. So here you can see it returned all the information. Okay. So that is how you can also locally verify if you are building your own MCP servers. This is a very handy tool that you can use to connect to it and then test this. So this is how we can build a stdio based MCP server using Spring AI. Next, let us take a look at building the same MCP server, but this time we are going to use WebFlux SSC based protocol instead of standard IO. Okay. So earlier we have added the dependency of Spring AI Starter MCP server, but this time we are going to use WebFlux version. so that we are going to expose our MCP server via WebFlux SSC. Okay, now this is the only change in terms of dependencies. And if we take a look at properties file, here we are not configuring this as a web application type none, because it is going to run as a web application, so we should not configure that. And I am customizing it to run on the port 8181, and also I am giving a different name to my MCP server, and that's it. So rest of the code is exactly same. There is nothing much change. You can use the exact code, but this time we need to run the application in order to connect to it and then invoke the tools, because this is a web application type. So let's go ahead and run, and it will start on port 8181. So let's go ahead. So here you can see same, we can start MCP inspector and select the transport type as SSC, and the URL is 8181. By default the endpoint is /SSC. So let's go ahead and change it to SSC, and yes, we can see the details already here. Let's reconnect, and it is connected successfully. List resource, no, here clear list tools we can see. And let's put a breakpoint to make sure that it is actually invoking our application endpoints. So here I'm going to put a breakpoint in here, and go ahead, get all this. So as you can see, it invoked our application tool. So let's proceed, and you can see the data. So that is how we can create the MCP server, this time using WebFlux. And also this is how we can use MCP inspector to verify that tools, and you can invoke the tools accordingly. Okay. Now let us take a look at how we can build a client application. So far we have used Claude Desktop as the client tool, where we configured what MCP servers we would like to interact with and all that. And then we chat with LLMs from Claude Desktop, which is a client application. Now, instead of using Claude Desktop, let's say we are building some web application, and from that we want to use these MCP servers. So our springboot application will act as a client. So how do we build this client? So let's take a look at the POM file. Here I am building a web application. In addition to that, this application is going to act as a MCP client. So I have this starter client as well. And in this application, I'm going to use Ollama, but you can use openai or any other thing. And these are the key dependencies. And if you take a look at the application properties, again, we configured the ollama configurations, which model we'd like to use and all that. And important thing is we have configured the client standard IO servers configuration. So either we can directly configure using the properties itself, or we can use a JSON file to configure. And this is similar to how we configured using Claude Desktop configuration. So here I specified this is the JSON file that contains all the MCP servers configuration. If I take a look at this MCP servers JSON file, as we can see, this is exactly how we configured in the Claude Desktop. I configured the same server name. You can change it if you want, and give the same details. Now, once I have this configuration, how do we make this MCP servers available? So in a video controller, this is a REST API controller I have, and while building this chart client, in addition to building this default advisor, we have talked about it earlier. So here I am injecting these tool callback providers and then passing it to default tool callbacks. So all the tools that are configured in these MCP servers, here we have only one, but you can configure multiple. So all the tools available in this is going to be available to this chart client as well. So here, if I ask a question that says, okay, what are the videos available on SivaLabs channel, it should know, okay, I need to invoke the tool from that SivaLabs MCP server and call that. Okay, so this is pretty much, we have already seen how to do this, but the key point is to hook up this tool callback providers into this one. Either you make it available as a default tool on a chart client, or you can also pass for a specific invocation as well. Okay, now this is all the key configuration. Now let's go ahead and start the client application. Here I am starting this. And make sure this is important, like where you have your jar file, it should have the correct path. So now I have started the application, and let's go to localhost 8080. This is my client application. Now here, let me ask, so I'm hoping this is going to use SivaLabs MCP server and fetch the data, and it should show what are all the videos available. As you can see, it shows all the response that it got from MCP server. So that is how we can build an MCP client application and configure what are all the MCP servers that we would like to use from this client application. So imagine you are building a help desk application and you want to leverage different MCP servers. So in this case, we are using this MCP server, but as I mentioned, we can also directly configure a Postgres MCP server and you can query the data. So it is this is how you can configure which MCP servers you would like to use from your client application. And in this case, we are using standard IO protocol. Okay. Next, let us take a look at how we can build an MCP client using WebFlux. So this is the final application that we are building, MCP client WebFlux. It is kind of a similar to MCP client standard IO, but in this time, instead of using simple MCP client, we are using MCP client WebFlux dependency, which is going to use WebFlux based communication with the MCP servers. Okay, and we are using ollama. And if you take a look at the configuration, we have ollama configuration that is common, but this time earlier we have stdio and connections information, but in this case we are using SSE based connections, and I am giving a name to the MCP server here itself, SivaLabs, and I am specifying where is this MCP server running. As you remember, this application I have configured to run on port 8181. So here, so I am configuring that here. Okay, and the rest of the code is common, like in the video controller we have same tool callback provider injected, and you can make a call to this ask API endpoint from your application. And one thing to remember, because here we are making a call to this service, it should be up and running as well. Okay, so first let us go ahead and start the WebFlux based server. So this is the one. Let's start. Okay, once it's started, now let's go ahead and start our WebFlux based client as well. And both are up and running. Now let's go and let's search for what are the videos available on microservices from SivaLabs. So from this application, it is going to talk to the WebFlux based MCP server and get the information. As you can see, it is it made a call to this MCP server. Here we hit the breakpoint. Let's proceed, and it should get the data and format it in a human readable format and then show it in this web page. Okay, so there is only one tutorial on microservices, which is complete tutorial Springboot microservices one. So as you can see, we talked from client application built with Spring AI to a MCP server again built with Spring AI using WebFlux, using SSE based communication, servers and events. So we have seen quite a bit in this video. We have seen how to build a server using standard IO and WebFlux, and we have seen how to implement a client using standard IO and WebFlux based protocol, WebFlux based thing. And we have also seen how we can use MCP servers from Claude Desktop as well. And also we have seen how we can leverage this MCP inspector tool to interact with the MCP servers that we are building locally. So very handy tool. So I hope this video gave a gist of what this MCP protocol is and how we can build MCP server and client using Spring IO. So this is it, and I hope you enjoy this series and you got good understanding of core Spring AI concepts, and you should check out this repository. And here we have all the code samples that I have gone through in this series. You should be able to check out and then run yourself. So I hope this series is helpful, and thanks for watching. Bye bye.